This region around the Great Lakes has been called the heartland. When it comes to agriculture, there's hardly an area in the world that compares.
Everybody, just hold on. I don't know what we're going to have here.
There's a lot of self-proclaimed geniuses out there that know the national yield, but they're all wrong.
Manage money, piling in.
Double digits higher.
So at this point, we're in kind of uncharted territory.
There's a lot of money on the sidelines.
So that was a crazy one.
That's what brings the viewers back. That a boy.
Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, November 11th, and this is the AgYield War Room. I'm Dan Dempsey, and I'll be moderating today's session. As always, if you get any questions or comments, please feel free to drop us a line in the chat area, and we'll be sure to get to it during the show. Also, a very happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. We certainly have appreciated your service. Overnight markets here, December corn down a penny at 4.28 3/4. January soybeans were down 6.5, 11.23.5, and December Chicago wheat was down 2 3/4 at 5.33. Government still shut down here for looks like another day or so. So we've got no export sales. As we talked about yesterday, we're going to have a data dump on Friday, which I know everybody is anxiously awaiting. We're starting to see some private estimates trickle through. Outside of that, Dustin, maybe a few comments here after yesterday's, pretty good bean rally for a majority of the day. We've set back a little bit overnight, but I guess what are your thoughts here as we continue to grind our way into Friday?
Yeah, I mean, we're really close to those contract highs again, settlement highs. Beans they're going to be choppy up here when you get this type of a rally. You're going to get, arguments on both sides still, and anything goes still. I mean, there's still competition from Brazil. There's still a question about what those purchases are going to be from China. We had those announcements that they're approving, sorghum imports. They had I think 10 different locations that China just approved for imports out of Brazil yesterday, which is not the headline you want to see if we're supposedly working, closer together. So that came out after the close. I think that may be some of the weakness. Like, that got me a little bit nervous that things are not necessarily heading in the right direction. So a lot of question here. I mean, I really wouldn't be surprised. I could be convinced either way right now. I don't think there's like a no-brainer path at the moment. The one thing I feel maybe a little bit more confident on, just speculatively, is that the front end of corn is set to have whatever is going to happen here at the end part of this month on first notice day. So if you think about a number of bushels that have just been delivered and are waiting to kind of figure out what to do and what, where to price, that decision is kind of forced on a very large portion of the market at the very end of this month. So any grower that's delivered on basis and is waiting to price, they're going to have to roll or sell before the last business day of the month. And, we're already hearing guys starting to get those calls. Like, I have 1 week to do this. What do I do? So if that is a very large position, if there's a lot of people that have done that so far, then you kind of have to worry about what that means, right? If there's just a crowded trade coming into this, I think that the spreads may be a risk here. It all depends on how much the market subscribed to the idea yet. So
I was looking this morning, and Justin, maybe you've got some insight here, but the estimate range on the soybean carryout side is pretty interesting. 187 to 494. In September, we were at 300. So I don't know if that's just somebody throwing out a flyer, but I mean, that's a pretty wide range for estimates.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at estimates, I think, the average trade guess is a 184 and a 53, and the range is 181.7 to 186. I think the range is much, much wider than what people are actually trading right now. So, a lot of these guys, I don't even know how they come up with estimates. They just want to have their name in print. So I think kind of worthless. A lot of people just kind of put down something not too far from the government, and then you have your outliers, obviously, that have a strong opinion one way or the other. So Yeah, I mean, same in corn. I mean, you have an estimate, a range of 525 million bushels on carryout.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think there's a lot of ranges out there. I think a 184 would probably be bearish corn personally. I think there's a lot of sub 180 guys out there. No, there's a few that are even higher that are 185, 186, but I think a 184 would be pretty discouraging to the bulls, because then you'd have to say, well, wait till the January report.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then I think a lot of those ranges is just the demand, right? We have massive demand figures written down. So we've talked about a lot on here. I think as the yield comes down, or if the yield comes down, you shave some feed and residual off right away, and you're kind of still sitting at a similar carryout. So it starts getting interesting if you're in the 181 or lower type yield numbers, and kind of devastating if you're 184 or higher.
I had the question posed yesterday, Justin. So this will actually uncover, this report could uncover some of this business that we've been doing, right? In terms of care. I mean, you could start to see like if they really draw down stocks like that we were doing business, or
if they draw, you mean if the government writes down a lower, if they increase demand?
Yeah, like that they knew that business was being done, it's just not reported because we were shut down.
Yeah, I mean, I think my comment to Dustin's, talking about anything's possible in beans. I think one of the toughest parts is it's November 11th, and there's no anecdotal evidence that we're doing this tremendous volume.
Right.
So obviously we did see basis levels pop in the PNW. So I'm sure we're doing some business. I think the big question is, 12 million tons by the end of the year. You should start seeing some real proof of that. Like export inspections aren't very spiffy for beans, so we know how much we're actually shipping out. And that's not, that's towards the lower end of the range for the last 10 years, not the upper. So I think that's kind of going to be one of the tough parts. And to ask your question on if there's not enough evidence, and does the USDA or on the WASI report put down a bigger bean export number based on that supposed deal? I don't know.
It'd be aggressive. And
they've been shut down. I mean, are they working? I know we open up soon, but like how much of that, I don't know. Hard to say.
Yeah. Integrity of the data is going to be interesting, and what the arguments are going to be going back and forth on where we come in, especially because, like you said, the last number you saw was September, and we're trading this gigantic corn crop in September, and it was like, is it going to get bigger? And I guess we've,
supposedly they're still doing all the surveys and also objective yield data that came out like a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's encouraging as far as getting the right trend on where yield's going. So I'm definitely looking forward to it, whether I like the results or not. I'm looking forward to getting some data, and then start getting, the estimates on commitment of traders report, I think is going to be really interesting to see what we think the funds did over 40 days. And also on obviously export sales, like just the data dump to Dustin's earlier point, can be super helpful.
Yeah. And I did want to talk about, like you said, 184 is probably a bearish number. I agree. I think the market has to reconcile with supply, but it is kind of the animal spirits of what people think of numbers when they're coming out. Like how many people kind of talked about 180 being a bullish number. I still have kind of some questions about how this is all going to end, even at 180. And, I've heard some questions about like acres. What are the acres correct? And I think in the years past, there's, there might be an argument for that. And I think this is the perfect year to show why there was an argument on that in the past, is that you're putting out a big survey for the June acreage report. And then you're reconciling the bushels against that survey. And that's also a survey you're reconciling against on stocks. This acreage report is certified acres from FSA offices around the country. So I'd argue this may be one of the most accurate acreage reports we've had. And it kind of sheds some light on the fact that the survey has been off so much, 2.5 million acres. All right. And then so like what the WASD committee comes out and they write down record demand. Why? Because if you build the supply, they're going to build in demand, assuming it's going to come. But I just put up a chart. If you can put that up, Jack. This is cattle ending stocks, right? Lowest in 60 years. I mean, we're raising the feed demand number over 400 million bushels from last year. I think that it's possible because, obviously where all the economics of that lie, but you also have record ethanol crush at the same time. I just think these are uphill battles. And the fact,
why record ethanol crush is important is because you're saying the DDG byproduct of feeding that also.
Right. Exactly. We haven't seen this type of, cattle feed number since like 2005, before we would have had all this DDG supply. So, so I don't know. I don't want to get on a soapbox, but I think it's a concern I have. It may not be like the shock and awe concern of a November WASDE report, but 2023 was just a reminder of like what this just like being bogged down by too much supply feels like, is that eventually that bill comes due if we do have too much supply, even if it's not in the right usage centers. If it's in Nebraska and South Dakota rather than Central Illinois, it's eventually going to work its way into a larger carryout.
Yeah, I mean the opposite side of that, sales have been phenomenal, right? So the question is going to be, I see that like ethanol margins have gotten really good in Brazil. I'm one of them that's been kind of waiting on the safrinha crop to completely take over the export market here. So a caveat to that would be feed residual come down, maybe exports hit the number or even higher. But that's, to me, such an uphill battle with safrinha, unless it wasn't as good or their demand base has just picked up that dramatically. Animal numbers, ethanol, they're building more plants there. I don't think that's a right now thing, but certainly their demand base is growing pretty fast on there as well.
Right. Markets work, right? We're going to find a way to use all this extra supply the world is growing.
Right.
Ben, what's on your mind this morning?
Stations about all the uncertainty building into the report, and the market recognizes that we're in a, let's call it a 1005 to 1035 range in beans. We have been for 7 or 8 days. Corn is a 426 to 435 in a tight range, for the last 12 days. And the market is thirsty for some news. And there's so many things in this report. I expect report the hour afterwards to be fairly volatile, because I think there's, to Dustin's point, people will focus on the yield right away, and then they will get into the details of what's in there and demand and other things. And then you follow that up with, how are the big players sitting once we have a better fundamental understanding? And I would assume that we would get that data on Friday afternoon per the usual, but that's a lot, right? You could have some things that would be supportive, and then we come in and find out that they've completely flipped the script and are long a bunch of corn, but it wasn't that supportive, right? Or how long are they in soybeans right now? And you get, maybe you get just kind of neutral data. So it's going to be a lot. I think volatility, report day, a couple of days following will be present. So market is building energy.
To that point, Ben, I feel like this is one of those reports, if I got the numbers ahead of time, I'd end up losing money.
100%.
It just feels like that. So,
yeah. So I just think you go back to the matrix, you make sure you're comfortable with where you're at. In that same time frame, we've lost our crop insurance. We still have farm bill stuff. So that's there. But this could be a pretty dynamic day in both corn and beans.
Last thing, not to keep going, but Brazilian real at new highs right now. So that's another factor that is just underlying support at the back end of the market to consider.
Very good. Ryland, got a couple minutes here. Impressive rally off the lows yesterday in cattle, and hogs certainly participated as well. So I guess what's shaking in your markets here this morning?
Yeah, finally got the recovery bounce I think everybody was looking for in cattle. I mean, obviously, you had a lot in the news, right? You had the Packers becoming under investigation by the DOJ for price collusion manipulation, which I think everybody kind of initially thought like, oh man, this is terrible. But still a lot of other things going on too. SNAP benefits possibly back, incoming to consumers. You got the Goldman roll, so you just got a lot of volatility. So there's a heavy amount of short covering here too. So I mean, open interest was down pretty sharply in both places. 1,182 contracts in the live side, and on the cattle, down another 5,300. So seems like this idea that protein demand is going to start to ramp up again, I think, is kind of leading the charge. Plus, we were deeply oversold in both places. So I think now it's kind of see what kind of follow through we see. Still really haven't seen any cash trade today. We do have expanded limits in both live cattle and feeders, live at 1075, feeders at 1375. We've seen the basis narrow up a little bit. So now it's time to kind of see how Packers are really going to roll out their bids, if there is going to be any fear on their side from these investigations going on. Like we stated yesterday, it's probably a nothing burger. Any kind of wrongdoing will likely be met with some kind of settlement payout versus any kind of admission of guilt. So we'll have to just see, if there's any real details getting rolled out after this investigation, just from, some kind of, legislation, involving that. But more to come on that. So I think that's what we're dealing with today. We'll see what kind of follow through we see.
Very good. Appreciate the update there. We just coming into the open. Got December corn down a half at 429 1/4. Jan soybeans are down 6 1/2 at 1123 1/2. And December Chicago wheat is down 3 at 532 3/4. We appreciate everybody that tunes in on a daily basis. If you wouldn't mind, throw us a like and certainly subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything to do so, and it'll keep you up to speed on everything that's going on with AgYield. So again, thanks to everybody that supports the show. We're doing this live every day that the markets are open on X, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live at 8:15 Central Time. Appreciate the thoughts and comments here this morning, guys. It was a good show. Again, happy Veterans Day to all. We appreciate your service, not only today, but every day. And so hope everybody has a great day, and we look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.
The War Room is proudly presented by AgYield. For over 50 years, the AgYield team has provided grain marketing and risk management solutions for growers across the country. Our veteran consultants harness cutting-edge technologies to pinpoint risk, optimize market performance, and protect your farm's profitability. Discover a new approach to farm revenue management at agyield.com.
Hey guys, Jack here. Be sure to support the show by hitting the like button, leaving us a comment, and subscribing to the channel for all the latest updates. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.